Welcome to another episode of Champ Talk with Branden Hudson. We are back in action, ready to talk to you guys, produce massive value, give you this stuff that you guys can take with you, share, give just so much back. We don't ask anything from this. You know what I mean? We do this all for free. There are sponsors now that we do have, but you know, at the end of the day, it's us just providing value, and we are happy to be back in the building. This episode of Champ Talk with Branden Hudson is brought to you by Residential Electric. Residential Electric is taking over the Eastern Shore by storm with their service of HVAC, electric work, all the above. You know, my buddy John Dyes over there, he's done a great job of building such a reputable, great business. And, you know, you get the work and the service that you need. So check them out. Big thank you to them. Also, if you get value from this episode and you think, or you think somebody else would, share this, man. Hit them, tag them, do whatever you need to do. Whatever platform you listen to this on, whether you listen to it on Facebook, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you're watching the YouTube, you know, wherever you're at, man, shoot them a message, send this to them if you think someone that you know can get value of this. And also, man, biggest thing you could do for us is please hit the like and subscribe button and give us a testimony. Leave us a review. I don't want to just hear what you got to say. Like, great job, guys, man. I would love to hear your feedback and where I can go do good, do work better, worse, all the above. So that's important. It's funny because the YouTube comments are just like brutal. And they're just like, they're merciless, and I love them. I love them. Keep them coming. I appreciate them. I enjoy them. You know what I mean? You know, obviously, I don't want to be talked bad about. I don't want everybody to love me and like me, but at the end of the day, you get what I'm saying. Anyway, again, please do that. Like and subscribe and share this. Today's episode, man, I am super excited about the guest that I have on today. This gentleman is, in my opinion, you know, a major staple in the community, especially in the sports athlete side here in Salisbury on the Eastern Shore. You know, he's a very humble guy, so I'm going to have to gas him and pump him up as much as I can because he's going to sit here and he's going to be the guy that's going to shake it off, brush it off, and rightfully so. But he's done a great job, responsible for so many athletes, youth athletes development, and so much more. So I have Cody Revel here today, brother. How you doing today, man?
Good, man. How about yourself?
Doing great, brother. Doing great. I wanted to have you on here, man, because you know what I do here on Champ Talk is I get a lot of people that want to get on the show, right? Everybody wants to talk, right? And the first question I ask, okay, what do you want to talk about, right? What do you want to talk about, right? And that's about where most of them stop. You know, well, we can talk about cool stuff, but for me, I like to get people on here that align with, you know, some of the things that I'm into, right? And not necessarily agree with me, but more so just, you know, hey, this person's trying to do this in this direction or is doing this in this direction, and, you know, it aligns. We've had a ton of conversations. We've connected. We've done business together. It's been great. And, you know, we just share a lot of commonalities. And what I love about you is you have a very humble beginning, and you're just tenacious, man. Like, you are one of those people that is very good at what he does. You're also, repetition has been, I think, the biggest thing that has, you know, that stand out from what I've observed from you and watched from you. And I think that's very important because that's the operator side. That's the key to success. We talk about all this. So, you know, I could talk about you all day. I appreciate you being on here, but let everybody know where you're at, what you're doing, all the things you have your hands in. Let's get a good introduction, and then we can just spitfire this thing from there.
Yeah, no, definitely. Appreciate you for having me on.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about this before. We both can talk a lot, so this could go a lot of different ways. When I walked in and talked to Dylan, I was like, dude, I don't even know what we're talking about, but we'll figure it out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So for myself, you know, again, I do always like the humble approach, just because I always feel like I've not done enough yet. And I'm sure you probably feel the same way too.
Yep.
There's still a bigger purpose. There's still a bigger mission, you know, that I'm attacking. So I don't like to celebrate too early. You know, I'm still in the race, you know, I'm still competing. And that's my biggest thing is I'm a competitor. But for me, man, if I was to keep it simple, I'd probably say, for me, my upbringing is kind of molded me into what I am. Mm-hmm. You know, I have two parents that are very hard workers, you know. Grew up, we talked about this before, you know, trailer park kids. You know, you see all the struggles of the trailer park.
Our biggest enemy growing up was a tornado or a hurricane.
Quite literally. The hurricane's coming through, you got all the trees over the trailer. Like, man, if this hits, like, the trailer's done.
Yeah.
I remember I was probably 14, 15. We had a big hurricane that came through, and my mom and my sisters went to, I think, stay with my grandmother. My dad and I stayed there just in case a tree fell on the trailer so we could patch it up. Yeah. Obviously nothing ever happened, you know, but it's a conversation I have with my wife so much is, you know, the trailer park upbringing, what I learned, that grit and that tenacity, I want my kids to have that. Yeah. But at the same time, I want them to have opportunities, you know? So for me, not to get too far in that, I'll kind of go my background a little bit further real quick. For me, my upbringing is everything. It's made me who I am as far as to the core. You know, my mindset is I want to outwork anybody in the same room with me, but in a humble way. I'm not going to, you know, sit here and tell you I'm going to outwork you. I'm just going to show you. Yep. And, you know, for as long as I can remember, my mom has had 2-3 jobs. She has 2 jobs now. She doesn't even need 2 jobs. She likes to work. My dad works 7 days a week doing construction, doing extra work. So it's just one of those things where I was exposed to that so much that that's me at a core. And there are flaws with that. You know, you get as an entrepreneur, sometimes you can work too hard that you're never working on the business, you're staying inside of it, right? So that's one of my biggest flaws too. But in order to understand where you're going, you got to understand your background. So that's my background there. Going into a little bit more credentials just for the viewers. I have a bachelor's and master's in human performance, exercise physiology, whatever you want to call it, that realm. Certified through the NSCA as a certified strength and conditioning coach.
Working on your doctorate.
So I did a semester of my doctorate, passed it in 98, and decided that I am not going to do this right now because I have 2 kids and that's taken away from them. So I want to go back and do it. It was a really good experience, really challenging. It's a lot of work and I'm not scared of the work. I'm scared of the sacrifices that work will require. And to me right now, my family's much more important. So I want to dive into that a little bit more before I step back in. Own the Athlete Academy. We have a location in Fruitland, one in Berlin, you know, doing well, looking to do a 3rd location, hopefully next year. And then general manager at Crown, you know, so that's where I'm at currently, a little bit credential wise. In a nutshell, I would probably just say I like to lead people. I like to inspire people. I like to bring the best out of people. That's kind of my superpower, I call it. But yeah, man, I think that's how I got here. And I think that's why we click so well, because we have that similar upbringing. Yeah. We have the same work ethic, you know? And I think we have the same challenges. You know, we both, before this podcast, you were talking about some struggles you had this week. And I guarantee you your first thoughts when all this happened was, if I was there, it wouldn't have happened. And I think you even mentioned that actually. And what I would challenge you to say is, what could I put in place to where it would have went well, even if I wasn't there? Like, who could I have empowered? How could I have educated them and prepared them for something like that so they can handle it when I'm not there?
Yeah, you're 100%, not to cut you off there, you're 100% correct, because, you know, I had a message with my team and my staff, and I mean, they got it, you know what I mean? Because, you know, we failed on all fronts, and, you know, I had to reiterate them that this was Friday, you know what I mean? I had to reiterate them today at the sales meeting, or at the coaches meeting, excuse me. Hey guys, listen, I know you guys took an earful, and rightfully so. You know, I was angry, you were angry, you know, we failed, all the above, right? But at the end of the day, just full transparency, I went home and couldn't sleep well. And I knew that as a leader, I failed because I didn't have this in place, and I didn't, you know, talk about this, and there was not clarity. And I think that's, you know, to the challenge, and I appreciate that, because certainly you're spot on with that. You know, what could I have done as the leader, as the owner, as, you know, the guy who's in charge and responsible? What could I have done differently? You know, how could I have prevented this? How could I empower my people? How could I give them a more clear vision on the next time or another situation? Because you won't have a duplicate situation. You'll have something that's completely left field that happens. And you're like, you know, how do I pivot from there? The Athlete Academy, how long has that been running?
In one day, actually, it will be year 7.
Wow.
So absolutely. Actually, no, 2 days, because I didn't want to open it on April Fool's, so I did it on the 2nd. it was just bad juju. Yep. Really, our equipment came in late. We had an odd snowstorm in like the end of March that pushed our equipment back. So I always make the joke that I didn't want to open on April Fool's, so I opened on April 2nd, but that was really just because equipment got pushed back. So yeah, 7 years, man. We're doing really well. I have a business partner, Ryan, now that helps me, and, you know, without bringing him on, we want to be able to expand to what we are, because it grew greater than what my vision was and what I could do alone. And like I said, we have 2 locations now. And for those that don't know, you know, we're more of a micro gym, small group, you know, 8 people max per group, specializing in human performance, whether you're an adult that wants to feel better when you're out there doing yard work, or an athlete who wants to perform better in any sport, So we kind of do it all.
But primarily, I mean, your demographic is young athletes that are coming to develop in their specific sport, whether they're getting ready for college, trying to develop the coordination and the motor skills to, get on the team, or just overall improve. You're responsible for that. That's mainly your demographic. What I think is what stands out the most, because for those who don't know, I don't know where you first started, right? I know where you were, and then I know where you're at now, right? And now you're part of this, for the viewers that aren't around here, listeners around here, Crown Sports Center is this huge warehouse.
125,000 square feet.
Yeah, it was the first of its kind around our area, right? You know what I mean? Pure Fitness is on its heels with what we've done here, or Nick's done here, but Crown was the first. It actually used to be Crown Cork and Seal, which was a bottling company that my uncle used to work at. But at the end of the day, they turned it into this fitness facility. For a while, I had a couple of different businesses in there that was kind of moving, but you moved into that a big space over there, which made perfectly good sense in my opinion. Great location, great store frontage. I mean, you couldn't have got a better play, you know what I mean, than what you've gotten. And then you were quickly approached about running Crown. They had dumped a lot of money into it to revamp it, kind of get some of the stuff that didn't make sense. They had a skate rink there, and it was cool, but it was probably more trouble, if I had to guess, than it was worth squeezing. And Rody and Joey are good friends of mine, friends of yours. Those guys. Rody does a great job with the restaurant side. Joey does a great job with everything he touches, it seems like. And they approached you about running the show. And tell us about that, you know what I mean? Because from what you've told me it's like, your success from the Athlete Academy was one thing, but then you got over there and you're kind of like, you're like me a lot, we're running two different businesses. Tell us about that, because you quickly surpassed that goal as well, right?
Yeah. So for me, it was, I guess, kind of going back from the get-go, it was hard for me to step in that role initially, because I love the Athlete Academy, I love everything I built, and I knew there was still more that I wanted to do with it. But I also knew I had a strong enough team in place where I could take this other opportunity. And the end reason why I actually took this position is in one of my 300 level classes at SU, I actually had to build out my ideal business. And that ideal business was Crown Sports Center with Athlete Academy inside of it. I mean, it was the youth sports performance training. It was
How long
the
ago
league
was this?
play. This would have been 2015, 16.
Oh my gosh, dude.
To the T. Like I actually still have it.
I'm lighting up so much right now because I can't wait to talk about that. Just alone, but continue. Sorry.
Mr. Romanowski was my professor. And the funny thing is, I did that assignment and I said, I would never want to be the owner of this. It's going to be too much. And never had the dream to own a gym, actually. I was a college strength and conditioning coach. That's what I wanted to do. And initially accepted a job to go be a college strength and conditioning coach, but something in my gut just wasn't sitting right. I felt like there was more to do here in this community. And so I decided, I was like, hey, I'm going to open up the Athlete Academy. So I literally Googled how to open a business and figured it out. I mean, that's one thing that I would say that I'm really good at is I'm really good at executing and figuring things out. If I don't know how to do it, the information's out there. We have all the information in the palm of our hand with our cell phones, or just ask questions, and the funny thing is that's where I met Joey. He was my landlord for my first location. And we just had a landlord-tenant relationship for the longest time, never really talked too much, but he started to learn our model more and more, that when they started looking at Crown, they called me, and I was a part of the initial talks of them just taking it over of like, hey, where can you fit in here? And at that time, when they purchased it, we didn't have that right fit yet, because I think a couple things were going on. They had to figure out, hey, what are we doing with the facility? Yep. And for me, I was like, will our visions align? Because I'm really big on vision. If I have my name behind something, I have to believe in what I'm doing.
Agreed.
Over the years, I saw what they were doing there, and I saw the potential, and I felt like they weren't maximizing what it could be. Not to any fault of their own, because they are so busy. So,
and they're not gym people.
Exactly, it's a whole different business.
They're real estate developers. They're restaurant people. They're huge, successful entrepreneurs. Yes, successful entrepreneurs. But if you want to make some money, don't open a gym. That's what they say, right?
Absolutely.
And it's a tough business. It's a tough business, especially when you have a niche market, where, I have the MMA side. You have, specific training. For that to happen, I mean, you really have to execute on all fronts on exercise. And dude, brother, I wish I had half the ability to build out SOPs and execute like you do, because I think that's a huge strong point of yours. Yep. I can get out front and sell you the dream, but I'm cracking so many eggs while I make this omelet. But yeah, I mean, they're not gym people. So for you to be able to see that and align with that, I mean, I assume like they're probably, like a pig in shit, happy to have somebody like you that.
I hope so.
Yeah, well, it looks pretty
That's
good.
what they tell me, at least. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But no, again, everything. I love them as people.
Yeah.
I love their vision they were going into, and I saw the potential. And for me, and I'm sure you feel the same way, if I'm going to bet on anybody, I'm going to bet on myself.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just because I control myself. They always say control the controllables. Who is that? That's me. So I want to put myself in that position. If it's a basketball game, I want the last shot.
Yeah.
If it's a football game, I want the ball last.
Yeah.
And not because I'm the best player. A lot of times I'm not. I may not have been the best option for Crown, to be honest, but I know my work ethic. I know what I'm going to do. I know how adaptable I am, and I know that I can figure things out. If I don't know the answers, I can reach out to people like you and say, hey, what are you doing in this world?
Yeah.
Like I can learn from you and take what you do, implement it on our side, or maybe modify it a little bit to fit the way I would want to do it, things like that. And I think that's what you gotta have in this world of business nowadays. You have to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
We're changing things so much. We gotta be willing to learn. You gotta be humble enough to say, hey, I don't know.
Gosh, that's just a great point, because, I had a training or sat in on a training with Branden Brittingham, last week. And that's actually, it wasn't a training. It was, we were sitting talking to an agent that was thinking about joining us. And what happened was, whenever you sit with a guy like him or like yourself or anybody, you get to really get the, I see him all the time, but when he's in that mode, you really get to learn. And that's exactly what he said. He was like, listen, I'm not teaching you real estate, sales. Sales is cool. Sales is great. X's and O's you need. I'm teaching you how to be an entrepreneur. I have an entrepreneur mindset. He was asked, what's the difference between him and, another broker that person was with, and that's his answer. So the biggest thing is I have an entrepreneurial spirit. I'm teaching you how to invest your money. I'm teaching you how to grow your business. I'm teaching you how to, build out structures, the 4 pillars of business, master sales and marketing, then hiring and training, then, leadership, and then obviously, CEO and investing. So I think that's incredible that you said that. One thing that I want to point out is, you've had this like monotone type of very neutral way of speaking, and you've been it's just been a cool conversation. The minute you said that I want the last shot, I want to take the last hit, your whole facial expression changed. And I saw the competitor in you, and that's cool, because that's somebody that you want to be in the foxhole with, somebody right. that can, hey, I can be who I need to be for what I need to be, and I can make this happen. But when it's time to go, it's time to go. And that whole instinctual change in you was very impressive, because that's how somebody's really deep down hungry and they want it, and they're sure of themselves that even if I'm not the best fit, I'm going to give you the best results, And I think that's what we've seen, with what you've done with Crown and Athlete Academy and the success that you've had. You also have something, we've done business together. We've had a Gym Wars, which is a couple of them, which is, for those that don't know, they're like local jiu-jitsu showcases, kind of like an MMA fight, but they're showcases, right? So we've had a couple, Gym Wars there. And then you're partnering, and we're going to do more together, but now you're also doing some other things. You got an event that you're kind of hosting for, the Hoops on the Ave event. You want to talk more about that and what your vision on that is? We talked about that last week with my cousin Andrew, who's involved in it. And that was a accidental podcast. And he just happened to be. I said, let's do it real quick. But what I think is cool is now you're in here this week. We heard it from the visionaries, experience. Tell the folks, especially the local folks that are looking forward to that, what your vision and thoughts are on that.
Yeah. So Andrew, like I said, great visionary, had great ideas, great at planning. I think
he's a pain in the ass. I want to go on record. Nah, he's awesome, man. He's great.
Isn't every visionary though?
Yes,
let's be real. I mean, I think every visionary, you have 10 ideas, and one of them is probably a good one.
My wife is like, "You're so difficult," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? I don't see it." She's like, "Of course you don't."
Yeah,
but you're right.
I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was like every successful business has a visionary and then an executor.
Yep.
One person creating all the ideas and one person executing. So that's me and Andrew.
Yeah.
Which is funny because actually I'm usually the visionary, but in this world, he knows that world
Yeah.
better than I do. That street ball 3v3 tournament, like he understands that to a level I don't. And a lot of our conversations are like, hey, I'm leaning on you to direct me because I don't know that world like you do. And every other aspect of my life, I'm the director, but now here's this opportunity where I kind of get to be a role player, which is kind of cool. Way less mentally exhausting. Some days I get home and wife's like, are you tired? I'm like, I'm just tired of making decisions all day. And it's not that I'm sick of it. It's just like, hey, I'm a little mentally fatigued right now. I need a little reset. I need to sleep, need to work out, stuff like that.
What happened to us being the students? You know what I mean? Like that's the role that I just to piggyback off that, I find it so much is like, I just love being a student, man. I love to be coached, you know what I mean? And a lot of times we don't get that opportunity because everybody's looking to you for the direction. So that's cool. You have this opportunity here to do that.
Yeah. And it's funny. I'm always looking for people that I can learn from.
Yeah.
And I think that's, getting back to it way earlier, that's the root of an entrepreneur. We're always looking to learn and develop and to do something different, because the way we're doing it is not the most efficient way. We got to be able to take a seat, look back and say, hey, we can optimize this. But yeah, getting back to Hoops on the Avenue real quick, really cool basketball event. It's going to have a lot of arts and crafts to a lot of culture to it. It's going to be really cool. He's done a few of them before and they've gone really well.
Yep.
The one thing that we get to offer at Crown is it's an indoor and outdoor facility. So no matter what the weather brings, 110 degrees or rain, we're going to have this event. And having that unique aspect indoors, I think naturally makes for a better atmosphere because nobody wants to be outside 80, 90 degrees for 5-6 hours straight. They want to be able to come back and go inside, eat some food, or listen to a performer on stage. I think he's even playing like a sneaker con. Again, he's the visionary.
Oh, cool.
He's got lots of cool stuff going on. Our role in it as Crown Sports Center is to be the host and assist in the day of, assist him with the build out. So we'll essentially be there to make sure everything runs smoothly. It's going to be a really good event. We're going to have plenty of staff. He's run his events in the past with volunteers, which is great. But when you have a volunteer, they just don't care for it like you would or like your employee would. Yeah. So by having employees there with certain direction and things like that, we'll have some volunteers. It's going to help the overall organization of it. So
when I heard it was at Crown, dude, it finally made sense to me. Like I love the vision, I love the idea, but the places that he had it, it just even with the Civic Center, it was cool that it was there, but it was like it was in the parking lot, right? Which
it's not our community center. Crown's our community center.
Correct, dude. Plus, you're so much. I love Crown. You know what I mean? And again, and we talked about this. We can elaborate this a little bit more later. I'm not threatened by Crown being a competitor gym or, you know what I mean? Like there's so much for everybody, you know what I mean? Like and you feel the same way. As long as you're doing something for your body and your fitness, your mindset, great. But when I heard it was there, dude, and I heard he was aligning with you, it made so much sense. And it really got me fired up because now I'm excited about this event because.
And you can come play?
Yeah. Play?
You can come play?
Oh, man.
For the SBY team, man.
Man, you really are putting me on the spot. We'll see. That's a good idea. We're going to be there. We're going to have a table up there. So
he told me that's cool.
We could potentially do that. That's a good idea. Got a couple ballers here, so maybe get some kids going or something.
There you go.
But yeah, man. It just makes sense, dude. And then when you're saying sneaker con and he had that element, which is a great idea, you know what I mean? And so much like the vision now can really, I think, take real full flight and really be something bigger than I think he even thought about it and being. Which is a good segue. And when is that date so the listeners can know?
May 10th.
May 10th, yep. So May 10th at the Fruitland Crown Sports Center. I just want to throw this shameless plug out. Hoops on the Ave. It's going to be a one-day event.
One-day event, yeah.
One-day event. It's going to be a great time. So, mark out your calendars. I know a lot of the college kids are going to get an opportunity to go to that. You know what I mean? Usually he does them in the summertime, and they don't get to take advantage of that. So both UMES, Warwick as well if they want, and obviously SU will be able to get to take advantage of that, but that's going to be great. But so vision, right? So you a guy that had humble beginning, living in a trailer park, growing up in a trailer park, you know what I mean, which that has its challenges in itself. And I think that there's two elements to for me when I was when I grew up there is you either dream too big, quote unquote, that's unreachable. Like, you know, I want $1 billion, right? Which is not, I'm not saying people can't do that. It's just like, that's a big number.
Right.
Or then you don't dream big enough, right? There seems to be a very small percentage of people that have like a realistic approach, right, to how they're going to get to their goals. So you got that. You're dreaming about the Athlete Academy. You create this paper in your college class, you know, 10 years ago, right? And you know, we're all about like attracts like, and you know, making things real. And I think it's just a great example. If you have an idea, you put it on paper, it makes it one step closer to real. And obviously, you know, that happens and it becomes real. You know what I mean? You know, what was the vision before when you decided to open Athlete Academy? And I know you talked about it's grown to something else. And where do you see it going in the next 5, maybe 10 years?
Yeah. Before I tap into that, actually, you made me think of something really unique. You know, you kind of made me reflect back on like what was my vision when I was living in the trailer park.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know about you. Did you envision like SBYMMA when you were like in high school, nothing like that?
Nowhere near on the radar. I
don't think, and I think that's a struggle for me. You know, we ask these high school kids like, "Hey, where do you want to go to college? What do you want to study?" We don't know. No. You know, so when you mentioned that, it got me thinking of like, you know, how did I get this path? Because I didn't lift a weight until the summer before my senior year of high school. And the reason why I chose to start lifting weights is I got into track my junior year just because my buddies wanted to do it, and there was girls in there. Like we were in high school, right? Oh, yeah. And the summer before my senior year, my best friend Keyshawn had passed away in a car accident. He was a great long jumper, top 5 in the state for sure. And I was like, you know what? I got a purpose now. Like, hey, I want to compete, you know, for him. And that created an opportunity for me to get close to my track coach. You know, my track coach saw this young boy hurting, you know, very silently. You know, I'm not a very like outspoken, emotional person on that side, but he saw me work and he saw it, you know, and we're still really close to this day. I mean, he actually was the man that married my wife and I.
That's awesome.
But he was like, whatever you need, we'll get there. You know, so we were going to the gym 5 a.m. before school. We were going after track practice. We were going on the weekends. From the summer before my senior year to when I graduated, I gained 30 pounds. And that was muscle. He would take me, this is back when Golden Corral was here. I don't know if you remember Golden Corral. I love Golden Corral.
And you probably needed all you can eat.
Yeah, dude, we would get the all you can eat. We would get there about 9 o'clock, eat breakfast, sit, and then eat lunch. They'd have to kick us out. But my track coach's name was Art Dokes. He was a military guy. The one story I always say about him is I'll never forget walking into the school with him one day, and I didn't see this lady, I swear, 100 yards behind me, right? Not really 100, maybe like 20. And I didn't hold the door for her. And he stopped, held the door, and told me I had to run a mile because I didn't hold the door for her. It was the little things in life, right? You know, and then he, you know, kind of getting to where I'm bringing this up, he taught me about this story of the purpose of a penny. And he said this story to me, and I'm going to butcher a little bit because that's been, God, almost 20 years. You know, we see change every single day, you know, on the floor. We see a penny, we see a nickel, we see a quarter. How many times do we walk past that? Every single day, most of the time, right? But if we started picking up every single penny, every single quarter, every single nickel, how much money would we have at the end of the year? You know, we all have this dream of making a lot of money, making $1 million, but we're not willing to do those little things to get us there. So that memory right there kind of got me down the sense of like, okay, everything I do has to be intentional for this bigger purpose. So again, at that time, I didn't have a vision for the Athlete Academy. I just knew I wanted to train. I wanted to be the best I could be. And that's where I learned how to be a competitor. Once I got into college, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I was failing classes left and right because I just wanted to go play basketball, you know, and then I got into human physiology and the strength and conditioning. It's just funny how everything in your life that you're surrounded by molds you into what you are. And, you know, as a parent, I'm sitting here thinking of like, okay, you can't, you know, micromanage your kids, how they grow up, but what situations can I put them in to be around people like an Art Dokes, you know, to where they can get that benefit from him, much like I did. Like I had a dad, you know, he worked a lot, so he might not have been there as much as a typical dad, but he taught me his, you know, things in his own way. You know, that Art Dokes, he was there and teaching me, you know, different things. And to me, I think that kind of goes all into your vision. And then for me, wrapping that back into the Athlete Academy, I wanted to serve as an Art Dokes for our athletes. So a very long-winded way of explaining how I got there. The Athlete Academy is always more than strength and conditioning. It's how can I be a mentor? How can I be there for somebody when they need me in the hard times? You know, we had one of our athletes recently, his dad just passed away last week. So I reached out to him, you know, hey, I'm here for you if you need to talk. Like, I'm here for you, much like Art is there for me today, you know? And I think that's how I got into it. And that's where the purpose comes from. And now the coaches that I'm looking for, I don't care about their skill set. I care about how much they care about our people.
Yeah.
Because if you care about our people, I can teach you everything else you want to know. And to me, I think that's the bigger vision. Just out of curiosity, pushing the question back on you, what was your vision with SBYMMA? Just kind of curious.
Well, first of all, dude, I got emotional when you talked about Art and that path, because, you know, had you not had that mentor and that guy, you know, what path or what person would you be today? Maybe not, you know, a loser or anybody who got in trouble, but would you be such a staple and such an impact on so many lives? And it really touched me a lot because, you know, I'm just taking, man, I'm one of those guys, I'll cry at a cartoon, right? So, but I get so engulfed in the story, and I thought you articulated that story very well. It's like, man, dude, like the penny this example, and just having somebody that just said, hey, I'm going to do this for this kid.
Picked up a penny today. Is it still in my pocket?
I pick him up
it's in my desk.
Every time I see him, I'm heads down, heads up. I don't care. But man, like what a blessing and an angel, you know, that he was, that, you know, I just see get missed so much, you know. Incredible for me. My vision for SBY was in a jail cell, and I was going to sit here and, you know, change my life, which at that point my life had already been changed, not by my choosing, but by the, you know, the state. And you know, I didn't want to go to work for nobody, because I knew, one, being a convicted felon was going to be a difficult task to get a job that I wanted to or needed to. And then the other side of it is that, you know, I was a 2-4-1 losing amateur record fighter. I fought for a title, but I didn't win it. I had no credentials in jiu-jitsu, no credentials in karate, no credentials in, you know, really anything. It was, you know, just my little 3-4 year stint of training and doing MMA wrong. And I was like, man, I'm just going to train fighters and be a personal trainer and figure it out from there and try to, you know, I did have a small vision when I would be in camps, because that's when you're really in tune with your spiritual side. You're in tune with everything, eat clean. And, you know, I was like, what if we could have one house where everybody could use their disciplines, be in the same house, and share it, right? And we could do this with the whole entire Eastern Shore, right? Because the Eastern Shore is small. The Eastern Shore, we can cross train, we could do this and so forth, and we can produce people that, you know, will go. And then my when I came home and I started that journey, and again, this isn't about me, but you asked a question, so I'll make it brief. Started that journey. Then, you know, my coaches pushed me to compete again, and that snowballed. We had a good buzz. I just went out and utilized social media, and I utilized that mentorship mentality, similar to what you're saying, because I knew that, fuck, if I could get the fuck out of something like this, I could help anybody else. I can't tell you how to live your life. And that was my vision. I was, look, before you go selling drugs and taking a path like I did, you know, why don't we go see what your hard work will get you? Because I loved what that felt. You know what I mean? That felt like. So for me, the vision was, you know, okay, now we're growing a little bit more. We're doing more. Hey man, why don't we'll build this gym up. You know what I mean? We'll get it to a point, and then we'll sell it for, you know, $1.2 million. And you know, go off to do other things, right? That was my vision. And, you know, now that we're deep into, I'm like, first of all, that was a small vision, right? Very small vision. Second of all, you know, we want to do more. We want to help more people. My mission statement is to improve the quality of life for everyone around me through mindset and fitness. Everyone doesn't mean just everybody in the gym. Everyone means everyone we can impact. So yeah, I agree with you on that front. It was like where I started, and what I was thinking was I was just trying to think of a way to pay the bills and support my family and help out my community to a degree where, you know, these kids wouldn't go left. Right. Or, you know, before you go left, come to my gym and see what you could find. And it's been more rewarding than any dollar figure that can put on it. I'm sure you feel the same way. So
that was the funny thing. The reason why I asked that question is I kind of knew what your answer was, and I wonder if that's the common denominator in a lot of successful, gym owners. You hear the gym industry is one of the worst industries to get into because it is a failing, industry. But I think a lot of people get into it just to make that dollar.
Yeah.
And I think the unique thing about you, and I definitely know on our side too, is the thing we do really well is really care about our people.
Yeah.
And we want you to be better. We're not going to hold your feet to the fire for this contract if you had a life, a situation happen.
Sure.
There's an agreement that we want to hold you to because we want you to be the best, but we're also understanding and flexible. If you're missing sessions because something detrimental happens in your life, we're going to work with you. We're not just going to collect that payment. And to me, again, I kind of figured that was your answer. I wonder if that's the difference between a successful and unsuccessful business owner, not even just a gym. Like, is that a common trait in a lot of them? Is that longevity? There's a lot of questions to it.
I 100% think it is. I think that it starts off just like anybody else. You know what I mean? Like, clearly that we want to help a lot of people. Clearly we had, influences in our life like art and other things, you could say, incarceration, you could say all these things had impacts, but we also, and I'm going to say this bluntly, we also had to make the numbers work. And that's what we thought. If you're in the gym business or, most business, you're like, well, for instance, if I've got, X amount of members times X amount a month, then I'm only paying X amount a month and I can make this much. So, that funnels. And I think people get that crossed up because they think, most people don't think they're worthy enough to charge or ask for the price or to get the success that they really truly want. They say they want success, but they really don't want success because some sort of self-worth impact in their lives, whether they were conditioned like that, guilted into that or whatever, they really don't think that they can or they deserve to make that. But when we start off as entrepreneurs, especially in the gym business that I can speak on, we're doing the math. We're saying, well, this, could do this. And if we do this benchmark, we'll make even more. Oh, man, I'll be sitting back. And then once we get into it, we find out, no, this is bigger purpose driven than anything else. The money will come. And in the gym business, you have to front load. You have to front load everything on the beginning, in my opinion, everything on the beginning, everything in the first 5-10 years before you start seeing really residual incomes and profits coming back to you. That when you're starting from the ground up, I think established businesses with SOPs and systems of processes and teams and all that, I think that's a whole different conversation. Right. But when you're starting with building the brand, building the quality, building the name and all that, you're front loading, you're spending massive amounts of hours invested, you're putting money in, you're losing money, you're doing all these things. But eventually, or probably sooner than later, I think that is the common denominator. I think that's when you realize, yeah, this is about the people. This is filling my cup more than it's taken from me. And I think that goes, without saying, why we have the success that we have and why we, some way, shape, or form aligned. And, we had talked many times before we had hooked up with the Gym Wars. And, we were talking about recruiting and real estate stuff. And, we were just, hi, how you doing? Stuff like that.
Conversations. You never know where they go.
No. And
it's a lost art nowadays.
Oh, 100%.
Like Dylan and I felt bad. He was trying to do some work and I was wanting to learn about Dylan. Dylan's the guy that records all this, by the way. Great guy. Yeah. I just met him.
Oh, he did it. Dylan edited that. I didn't want nobody to know. He's our giving about no. But you did it with me too. You're always inquisitive and you got that white bin mentality, we call it. And that's a networking ability. And you're right. It is a lost cause because so many people they want to meet you and they want to go right for the kill. Hey, what can you do for me? What do you have to offer for me? It's like, dude, our relationship, look, if I want to do business with you, right? First of all, I got to figure out how to get in front of you, right? Second of all, I got to figure out first of all, then back up. I need to know what business I want to do with you. Second, I got to get in front of you. Third, I've got to produce either something of value off the break or we've got to produce value just building a relationship and networking, right? And, how about connecting you with other people? How about throwing you referrals? How about just, picking your brain, paying for your time? That's another big lost art. So many people want so much time, but they don't want to pay for it. Well, guess what happens when you pay for my time? It's not the money that you're paying for. It's the art of respect that you're saying, hey, listen, I respect you and appreciate you and know you're busy enough and I want to extract lessons from you. I'm willing to pay you for your time just to show you that I'm serious and that I'm not, So all of those things are something that helps people gain that ability to talk, and that relationship can take 20 years before we do business together. That's where people really get the perception mixed up. They think that just because you said no, or it doesn't align now, that's a closed door. No. I'm going to keep nurturing that relationship. I'm going to keep giving and seeing what I can do, not for nothing in return, just because one day you might walk into something and I might be into something and it just might make sense.
Yep.
And why would you not want somebody to do business with that you can trust, that's reputable, that shares the same commonalities and so forth? And you're right. It is a lost art. We're running out of time. I wanted to ask you this question because I think it's a very, very important question first of all, I just want to say, dude, I love you, man. Dude, for real, like we don't know each other on a personal level yet, and we don't have that kind of relationship building where we've grown up together or anything like that. But for me,
we've had less than 10 conversations, to be honest.
We have. But man, I tell you what, we hit it off every time. And the other side for me is I always go with my gut with people. I always give everybody a fair shake, but I always go with my gut with people. And there's just some people you just know. You can tell, right? And that's what I love about you, man. I could just tell where your heart is. And that doesn't mean we're going to agree and, we're not going to make out after this session. It just means that, dude, what you bring to this community, what you bring to our conversations, what you bring to the table in so many ways and how you conduct yourself, man, I love that about you. And this has been this episode went by so fast. You got to come back on because
I did not realize it's been 40 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, we've been pumping, but I mean, you just killed it with so many, as you're talking and saying these things, I know that our reels are just popping up left and right with some gold, man. So I just wanted to give you your flowers. But this question needs to be asked, and I think you can answer it really well. Okay, we talked about the purpose, we talked about the vision, we talked about the humble beginnings, we talked about the whys, we talked about all that. X's and O's. How do I start a gym? Or even that, how do I start a business? What would be a couple of key points for the people that are listening to this? They want to jump off and take that first step, second step, third step. They want to do, or they might even already be in the mix of it and they need a little bit of guidance. But what has been like two or three main factors for you in the beginning that just, minus the hard work, the outworking everybody, that just really served you really well, that our listeners can take home and jot it down on their notepad?
Yeah, definitely. The way I did it wasn't the right way. Not that it was wrong, right? There's more efficient ways. I'd say if you wanted to be a business owner today, identify somebody that's in the space that you want to be in and shadow them. Volunteer your time. Maybe you can get a paid gig, right? I look back, I volunteered for 3 years under Coach Matt Nine at Salisbury University. 4 or 5 days a week, 3 to 5 hours a day, volunteered, never got paid a dime, but I was able to learn behind him how to be a great strength and conditioning coach. And to me, the degree was great from SU, but learning behind him was the most invaluable part to it, right? So that taught me the actual craft of what I wanted to go into. From there, owning a business, that's where I had to learn on my own. I attribute a lot of my early success, not initially opening, but when I started to you probably remember that moment where like you open a gym and you're stressed, you're not collecting the paycheck, and then you finally make that turn and you're like, you can see the tunnel. You're like, hey, I'm actually moving in the right direction. And for me, I actually read the book called E-Myth. Have you ever read it? The E-Myth, it's entrepreneurship myth is what it's short for. Highly encourage you to read it.
Sure.
It breaks down entrepreneurship to the absolute core of what it should be. It talks about working on the business, not in the business. Most people open up a business because they're a good carpenter, they're a good plumber, they're a good electrician, they're a good athlete, but they don't understand all the little things, the accounting behind a business or creating the vision or training new staff, and this book really talks about it. And to me, that is probably the most foundational book you can get into. And then from there, maybe identify some other really good resources. I know for me, Profit First from Micro Gyms was that other moment where I kind of felt that turn again of like, oh, this is a roadmap, a blueprint to how to manage the money, the income coming in. Because, we get into the business to help people. But the truth of the matter is we can't help people if we can't sustain a living. You have kids, I have kids, we have a family, we have wives. If we don't have a happy at home life, we don't have a happy work life. It goes hand in hand. So you have to generate some revenue to live. The first year and a half, I never collected a paycheck out of Athlete Academy. There's no way I could sustain that. I realized, you made a really good point earlier, I realized my value that I brought. I started to charge people that. And some customers didn't feel that was the right value because they were used to paying that old, price.
Yep.
A lot of customers nowadays still say to me, oh, that's all you charge?
Yep.
Value is perceived by every single person's perception, and it's really what you give to that person. Like, what value are you giving them? How are you guiding them? How are you directing them? Right. And so for me, that was the other turning point. So really quick recap. Number one, read the E-Myth. Absolutely fantastic book. I forget who the author is. I'm sure we can look it up and put it in the notes. Game changing book for entrepreneurs. Number two, I guess that would be number two. Number one is find a mentor. Number two, E-Myth. Number three, continue to do your research, and then just try stuff.
Yeah.
You're going to fail, right?
Yeah.
Try it, analyze what went well, what didn't. Try again, keep figuring it out. You're going to fail 10 times, but you're going to keep getting back up, and you're going to eventually build it to what you want to be. And I bet you'd probably go off and probably say the same of like, hey, just keep executing, keep trying.
Dude, that was a great answer, man. Phenomenal answer, actually. And the bad part about that answer, right, is that you're going to have people saying it can't be that easy. That's too simple. You know what I mean? Like, and that was, that was great advice. And anybody listening to this, listen, man, you just got a masterclass on what a highly successful, self-built, self-made, staple in the community just dropped. And I'm not, and listen, again, I have people on here that I align with. So, if I didn't feel these things, and go on record and let the internet, have it for life, I wouldn't say them. But dude, that was great. This has been an amazing conversation, like all of our conversations are. And I do hope that you'll come back on here, in 6 months or a year and share where you're at then. And, I look forward to all your success, man, dude. Thank you. I've gotten some gems today. Last thing, where can we find you? Socials, address, numbers, all that stuff. Where can we
Facebook, Instagram, just search Cody Revel. I'll
R-E-V-E-L.
R-E-V as in Victor, not R-E-B. That's the one thing I always get. Revel? No, Revel. Facebook, Instagram. I'm primarily on those. You can always call me, email me. You literally Google Cody Revel. You'll find my email address. You'll find my phone number. I have a real estate license, so it's everywhere.
Yeah, we didn't even get to talk about that, man.
We didn't talk about real estate.
I know, man.
I've had a real estate license since 2013, guys. Yep. That's to me another thing that I want to add in and keep contributing to as I get older. Creating that real estate portfolio, because now we're at that point of maximizing our own lifestyle.
Yes,
we're giving to the community. Now I want to maximize what we're doing. I want to experience things.
And you're an investor too, so it's not like you're just doing the buying and selling,
exactly.
But you're also doing that side too, which is really where you amass your wealth and stuff like that. The Athlete Academy is located. What's the address there? Just so.
Yeah.
Do you guys do walk-ins or you do
we do walk-ins. You can call us.
You
can text us, email us.
Okay.
Really whatever it is. We're right at Crown Sports Center, 28410 Crown Road, Fruitland, Maryland. Awesome. We have a location in Berlin on Ocean Gateway. Don't remember the numbers. 10445, I think.
There he is.
But literally, Google Athlete Academy and it pops up. We're everywhere.
Well, brother, thank you so much for being on this show today, man. It was more than I borrowed. It was one of my favorite episodes so far. So, and we've got over 120 some episodes running. So, man, it was awesome. Guys, that'll wrap us up for another episode of Champ Talk with Branden Hudson. Listen, guys, again, I know a lot of you guys got value out of this. Please share this, send this, like this, subscribe, do all the things. Give us a testimony. It only helps us get higher, get higher on the search engine. We don't charge. We do this for free. I want to continue to give value. Thank you so much, Cody, for being on this episode. And guys, again, on to the next one. What are you doing today to become a champion?